Hello, my name is Don Miller. I'm Vice President of the Fredericton District Labour Council. A little bit of my past. I moved here 10 years ago from Barron, Alberta. And when I got to Fredericton and all of New Brunswick, I found it like heaven. Green everywhere, just a beautiful province. I'm so proud to be here. And my question is for Mr. Leonard. The peer-received science and the industrial history of the fracking industry shows that it is unsafe and permanently destructive to the environment for a handful of short-term jobs. Every province and state surrounding New Brunswick have passed bans or moratoriums on this practice. We should be exploring clean energy alternatives instead, like solar, wind, and tidal energy that would create good long-term, good-paying jobs that families can live on. We have the highest tides in the world in the Bay of Fundy. New Brunswick could lead the world in tidal energy. I would add that clean energy under public ownership, example New Brunswick Power, would be best in my opinion. The profits would be shared where needed for citizens. So why is the government pushing for shale gas and hydraulic fracking when scientifically it has been proven unsafe and there are better clean energy alternatives?
Well, again, on that question, it's not an either or for us. It's an all of the above. We are looking at ways that we can increase our renewable capacity in the province. A big part of that is actually the smart grid technology work that we're working with Siemens that will allow us to better incorporate renewable generation into our grid. Right now, that is an issue that we have, is how to bring more renewable on and maintain the stability and the reasonable cost of the electricity system that we have. Obviously, I'm sure everybody in this room knows where I stand on fracking. I don't think there's any point of us going over. I think we can all just agree to disagree on that. I do think that it can be done safely and responsibly. In fact, I know it can be because I see it being done safely and responsibly, not just in other jurisdictions, but also in the province of New Brunswick. But again, it's not a situation where it's all or nothing on shale gas. It's not all or nothing on non-renewables. They all play a part. And in fact, with renewables, we have to have the backup generation available for it. Frankly, I would much rather, over the short term, be able to use a clean fuel like natural gas as opposed to coal or oil. That we look in Nova Scotia, they're still running 65% of their electricity generation off of coal. So, as I said in my earlier remarks, we do have a good story to tell here in New Brunswick. We're already at 30% renewable. We'll be at 40 by 2020. And again, with Point Pro, we'll also be at 75% of non-emitting energy by the year 2020. So again, I think there's a place for all of these fuels. I think there's a place for all of the technology that's available to us. And as a government, we'll continue to utilize all of them.
Okay, I just would also like the chance to speak to my position on hydrofracking. So I would disagree that all of the peer-reviewed science has said that this is entirely harmful. It is not without risk. Most things are not. However, a recent article that I read, which was published by 6 UNB professors, discussed ways that the risk could be mitigated. One of these has to do, there's a reason why the exploration phase of shale gas takes years. They need to frack in the right places, and where they've had problems, like in the States, if anyone's seen the documentary, which is sort of causing a lot of hysteria, where they've been doing that, it wasn't a good place to frack. They may not have followed the regulations that they were supposed to follow. So. As well, I'd like to point out that solar power and wind and tidal, while they all are great options to look at, none of them are without an environmental impact. So to say that there is just a 100% green technology to me is not a correct assessment. So what I would like to see is more exploration in the province. I would like to look at whether or not this is going to be beneficial. I am sick and tired of sending my friends out west. I'm going to be forced to move out west. I'm really tired of it. I think that we all still are kind of dependent on oil, very dependent on oil, and we need to move away from it, absolutely. But we also need to try to develop some of our resources and get something going here. So that's my point.
With respect to fracking, as it stands right now, myself and the Liberal Party, we want to basically hit the pause button. The bottom line is we don't have enough information. We don't know the effects, the long-term effects. We don't know the short-term effects. Before this thing happens, we need the information to make a qualified decision. Of all the resource-based jobs, fracking only represents 16% of all those jobs. So again, right now as it stands, we do not have the information required to make the informed decision on this. So, you know, I'm not in a position right now, and I don't want to be in a position to support it under the present circumstances.
You know, when shale gas was first sort of suggested in New Brunswick, without knowing anything about it, it seemed like, well, maybe if we just had the right regulations and enough people to enforce those regulations, it would be okay. But in fact, the more you drill into it, pardon the pun, the consequences and the risks associated with extracting shale gas are overwhelmingly negative. Whether it's contaminated wells or air pollution levels in rural communities that sometimes can reach those in urban communities, whether it's the quality of life and the well-being in those communities that is so badly degraded as a result of the intensive development of shale gas. Every year we see more evidence that this is one huge problem. Just the other month, a medical journal published research that indicated that there was an increased incidence of congenital heart problems in infants as a result of the proximity to wells. So why would we go there? It doesn't make any sense. And that's not to mention the fact that we've got to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. We have climate change. I haven't heard anyone mention that. We have a climate calamity with this. So I believe we've got a moral obligation to our children to wean ourselves off fossil fuels, and we can do that here in New Brunswick given time, ideas, imagination, ingenuity, and innovation. And I know New Brunswickers will pull together to make that happen if there was a political party in the Legislative Assembly that set that as a goal and as a vision. And that's what we want to do, wean ourselves off fossil fuels in this province and make that a project for our society. As big as putting someone on the moon in the United States in the 1960s, we will get off fossil fuels in New Brunswick.
I don't just want to hit the pause button, I want to hit the stop button. And the fact of the matter is that we have seen in the United States a real hostility to science from the fracking industry. For a number of years, there were lobbyists very well paid who ensured, for instance, that EPA oversight was banned during the Bush years, that in many states, like Pennsylvania and Arkansas, they have passed anti-disclosure regulations that say, even if your well is contaminated, you can't find out what we're using in the fracking fluid, so you can't prove it was us. Poor corporate citizenship elsewhere has to matter in New Brunswick. We don't say yes to any industry unless it's safe and profitable. And where I respectfully disagree with Mr. Allward, who has said, well, there's never been any proven link, the onus is not to prove the link. The onus is on the company to prove that it is safe. They have not met that burden of proof right now. We have talked about reinvesting in our scientific capacity, having an independent science general, giving the Attorney General real power to bring environmental prosecutions. And I will say this, a party that has built its entire economic plan on saying yes may not have the political freedom to say no, even if the science determines it. You do have two choices in this riding of parties that will say a clear no. Indeed, you have one party whose platform touches on a number of other progressive issues I hope we discuss, because this isn't about saying yes or saying no to one issue. It's about saying no to this, but also talking about jobs, about education, about equal opportunity, about fighting poverty, because those are the ways we also keep our kids home. I want my sons and daughters here too, but there's more than one way to do it, and that's hopefully with our party.